Welcome to Game Time, and this is your host Tom, coming to you from 734 Games. And before we get started on the fun stuff, my nephew is getting cancer treatments. His Gofundme is in the description. Any money donated to this channel will go to that. And now let's get started with Sanctum 2 by Coffee Stain Studios. This is the sequel to Sanctum 1. Sanctum 1 and Sanctum 2 are FPS tower defense hybrid games. Check them out. Let's stay with me for a little bit.
Woo! Back in the game. Let's get started. Here they come.
So let's get started. Now, I did not cover Sanctum 1. This is my oversight. I'm going to do that in another video eventually. One of these days, I'll probably couple other games. This game is by Coffee Stain Studios. These games are fun and interesting. You set up your tower defense, and then you get a wave of enemies, and you basically blow them up. And that's just one of those things I really like about this game. It's just a fun, straightforward indie game that you can enjoy. And if you're watching this channel, I think you love indie games, and I know you do. Then I have a bunch of other videos on this channel, but with a lot of other indie titles that you're not going to see on the mainstream channels. On my channel, I like to cover games like Sanctum 2 that don't get a lot of coverage. This is a fun game, and obviously, as you go through the different levels, it's going to ramp up and it's going to get harder and harder. And I played this game before. This game runs on Linux beautifully, although when I tried to use the streaming software and the game, not the streaming software, the recording software, and play the game, that didn't work out. And that was kind of weird because I've played games that are much harder on my system, are much more higher end graphics than this one, and ran them with software like that Tomb Raider video I did. And this game is not the prettiest game, but it's not a bad looking game either, and it's very fluid. And there's just a lot here there's a lot here to like. They kind of tell the stories in little comic book scenes. And it's a pretty well done game. Obviously, Coffee Stain published it themselves, so they have Coffee Stain Publishing and Coffee Stain Studios. It's obviously the same guys, and what they have here is a pretty decent little indie game that with a nice with a good premise and decent shooting. The mechanics work pretty well, pretty straightforward, and you have different types of enemies that are coming at you, and you have different types of towers. Like in every other tower defense game, you have to have resources to build your towers or to build your barriers, and that's how this game works. And you can corral your enemies and use strategy, and you get to blow them up too. So that's a lot of fun too. You're trying to keep them from this big ball of energy at the center of your base. And that's pretty much it for this episode of 734 episode of Game Time here at 734 Games. This is your host Tom signing off from 734 Games, where gaming is alive.